Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. Here you will learn all things related to healing from divorce, mind, body, and spirit, so you can create a beautiful new life filled with happiness. I'm Rachel Ruby, author of Divorce to Bliss, divorce coach, speaker, and attorney, and I'm so glad you found me here. Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. I'm Rachel Ruby, and today we are going to be talking about Lifelines for divorce. And these are all of the things you need to know to get help. As human beings, many of us tend to not ask for help when we need it. And when we are going through divorce, which is a trauma, it's sometimes hard for us to reach out to others. So we're going to talk about wonderful things today to help you. My guest is Ilyssa Panitz, who is the only divorce journalist and focuses exclusively on providing information for those going through the divorce process so they can get help and get healed and create a new life and move forward. She has a history of incredible journalistic accolades, including life as a Hollywood reporter. And Ilyssa also writes divorce columns for 2 major publications, as well as contributing to many others. She serves as the content and editorial producer for the National Association of Divorce Professionals and hosts a nationally syndicated radio show and podcast called The Divorce Hour with Ilyssa Panitz. I am beyond excited and grateful to have her here today. So welcome, Ilyssa, to my podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored that you asked.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored you accepted. Ilyssa and I share a passion for helping those going through this time and this healing journey. And so first of all, Ilyssa, can you tell our listeners and viewers how you became the only divorce journalist?
Out of frustration.
Yeah.
True story. I, was a journalist, as you said, my whole life. I was actually home during COVID working, trying to produce a newscast because at some point we were all working from home when the whole world shut down. And as I just mentioned, I was going through this very, very horrific divorce. And no matter what I did to try to understand what was happening, because it just started in so many different directions, Googling became so overwhelming, and I was really pulling my hair out of my head. And so in a bit of frustration, as lawyers were calling, I was listening to Good Morning America. And they were like, let's talk about how nobody's traveling with our transportation correspondent. Kids are not going to school. They're Zooming from home. And then we're going to go to our education correspondent. There's no entertainment. We're going to Hollywood with our Hollywood correspondent. And I screamed, where the hell is the divorce correspondent? As the phone was ringing with my lawyer trying to get in touch with me. And that's when I realized, wait a second, is there one? And no matter what time I woke up, because divorce interrupts your sleep, I would turn on the TV constantly with the remote going like this, going to MSNBC, CNN, Fox, anywhere that I can find a 24-hour news station. And never once could I find a divorce correspondent. Mm-hmm. And I then went on my phone and I started Googling it and nothing came up. And that's when I knew that I had to start something and create something to help people going through a really difficult time that are basically, for a lot of people, like that dog chasing their tail. People just don't understand and they don't have any kind of guidance. And so I always try to tell people that I am not your JD, your PhD, your CPA, your CDFA, but I am a trusted resource. I am your journalist. My job is to supply and provide information. So think of me as your GPS or your Waze. I'm going to help guide you through exclusive content. That content, those are interviews, and we're going to talk to you in a way you can understand. We will never talk above you. We will never talk beneath you. We are going to talk to you. And people feel like nobody does that. Attorneys talk and I call legal language. I'm like, I'm sorry, what does that mean?
Legalese.
Yeah. My accountant, I say, all I understand is, do I owe? Am I going to get money back? When's the refund coming? Where do you need me to sign? And that's what we tried to do with every column and every episode. So it's fantastic. All, like you said, about helping people.
Yeah. I am just so grateful that you do this because, and I didn't know about you when I went through my journey. And that's why I think, it's so important to broadcast you out there to as many people as possible because I love the work you do and I love what you put out there. How do you, what types of resources, tell our listeners and viewers what types of resources you share with people going through this process? Well,
like I just said, we're always interviewing experts about the many different things that can happen before, during, and after your divorce. I always ask people, what did you write a book? If so, what book did you write? Do you host a podcast? If so, where can we find it? I'll go on the web and I'll look for articles when I'm doing research, articles that I think can be of value to people. That was maybe value to me in helping prepare for the segment or for the episode. So, I mean, resources can be everywhere. The problem is nobody knows how to find it. Right. I just try to funnel it all and help people really locate them easier, because people don't feel divorce is easy. It's complicated, it's frustrating, it's confusing. And so that's what we try to do.
Yeah. And I love that you kind of highlight those big topics, like, the legal aspect, the therapeutic, emotional coaching aspect, the nutrition, staying healthy aspect, co-parenting, all kinds of experts that can really help, because I think when we tend to go through or start going through this process, a lot of us are very lost and confused. A lot of my clients are very confused, and they know they're supposed to talk to a lawyer. They know they're supposed to stay healthy, and they're supposed to figure out this co-parenting, which, can often be a nightmare figuring that out. And they're feeling down, depressed, whatever, victimized, whatever it is. And so they think, or they know, or they're told they're supposed to get help. And they may even be have the wrong support networks as well, which kind of exacerbates the whole issue of healing. Because if you're listening to what others say because, they love you, they may love you, but they may not be the right people to support you in your time of healing. So it's so wonderful to have all of these different people that you interview, give different perspectives, and kind of plant that little bug that, maybe, I need to talk to someone to help me with this. So,
and people aren't even aware of that. So, when people think divorce, the first thing that comes to mind, I always say word association is lawyer. And I say, absolutely. Chances are you're probably going to need a lawyer. Even if you mediate, you should have a lawyer in the background, because the mediator cannot give you legal advice. They are there to help the two of you just kind of work through all the issues in hopefully a very quick way, so both of you can get on with your lives. But you will need a lawyer behind the scenes just to make sure you are fully protected during the process. But the one thing people don't realize is, and it sounds probably so cliche to somebody such as yourself, but it really is about the money. And people think it's all about the emotion, my broken heart. And it's like, no, it is about the money. You are, and again, somebody would say this to me, you're dissolving a business. And I would be like, it's like, no, you are. And people don't realize the importance of paying attention to it, because, in the divorce, everybody's going to be entitled to different things. Now, the law may be different. You're in California, that is a community property state, whereas where I am in New York, that's equitable distribution. However, based on where you are, based where I am, there are laws set up. And that way, everybody should get what they are entitled to during this process. Well, how are you going to know what you're entitled to if you haven't been paying attention, or you are not aware of all the different things right now that could be on the table, or more importantly, should be on the table? So I always try to tell people that when they say, what's the mistake, what's your number one mistake people should avoid making? I said, calling an attorney first. You call the accountant or your financial planner, or somebody who's been handling the money, because the attorney is going to need to know that to help you during this process. And if you send them down, a black hole, that's going to result in bills you don't want to see, because they and their staff are getting paid the second they make contact with you and they're put on your case. Right. So really take the time to investigate this.
Yeah. You brought up something interesting. I think that, like you said, a lot of people aren't aware of what to do. And the first thing they think of is the lawyer, which of course is important and is a piece of the
absolutely.
But
I talk a lot to women who, like myself, divorced midlife. And a lot of those women, were, stay-at-home moms when their kids were growing up. And many of them gave up careers, and then they just kind of, the kids grew up and now they're older and some of them went back to work doing not what they were trained or educated to do, but just, something fun or whatever. And some of them didn't. So one client I have was very successful in her career field before kids, making a lot of money, then became a stay-at-home mom. Her kids are now adults, but she still doesn't work. And now her husband's semi-retired. Or soon to be ex-husband. So for people like that, I think this is really almost a slap in the face, in the sense that sometimes, or a lot of those women, and I hate to single out women, but that's mostly what I see, weren't in control of the financial picture, didn't pay the bills, didn't know what was coming in, what was going out. They just kind of, were on the joint account. They do the shopping. They get what was needed for the children. And a lot of those women come to the realization that, oh my gosh, I don't even know how much. They may not know how much is in the account. They may not know what the bills cost. And so that is very scary for a lot of people, to be in a position where you may not be working, or may not be working a job that can support you. And here you are going through this. A lot of times, for some people, it is something that just kind of hits them. Okay, let's get divorced. I mean, even though they may have known and may have felt it, it comes to a head, and there they are, and they haven't planned anything. They don't have that money. They don't know how much is available, and they can get sidelined. They can get, I've had some women who've been in really bad positions because the former spouse, knew where the money was and did something to prevent them from getting to it. And so anyway.
Yeah. And, and women should never beat themselves up. Yeah. I once interviewed an expert who said that of all the divorce cases they handle, 90% of women of all those cases have no idea or are clueless when it comes to the finances. Now, does that mean we are beating women up for shame on you for not knowing? No. Absolutely not. It's interesting because I was just watching something the other day about the pressures women have in today's society still, that we are supposed to be the main caretakers. We got to make sure everything with the kids is set. Like, we still have all those responsibilities from many, many, many years ago, despite how far women have come in the workplace. Yeah. And so when you're juggling so many different things and you think you have this partner who's doing their share to be a part of the team, because it does take teamwork, to run a household and family when you are married, you assume that they're doing the right thing and that they're going to keep you in the loop. Listen, I mean, we all do the best job we can, but I try to tell women, because I get so many reaching out to me, don't look back at what was. Now look at, you can learn. Now's the time where you can take advantage, and you can get schooled in all these different things. And how they say, well, how do I do that? I'm like, who's your cable carrier? Call. If not, you're going to go through something called discovery. And the other side is going to pony that up. And now you're going to watch to see what the bills were every month, your water bill, your electricity bill, the cable and internet kind of thing. And, women, we tend to be very organized. Make a spreadsheet. You can just go right on your computer and do that. Yeah. And you'll start seeing a pattern of what things cost. It will help you start to create a budget and wrap your head around things. Right. Look at call logs. Or emails or mail to see where things were coming from different institutions. Call, introduce yourself.
Get printouts of your bank accounts for a couple of months. Yeah.
Right. I've interviewed so many financial experts who say they get calls from women all the time going through a divorce. They welcome the opportunity to sit down and talk with them. Yeah. And, and that is always a quote that I highlight in these stories, that so many of these people are willing to sit down with you. But, you need to call them. You need to take the first step. They don't know that you want them. But all the people that I interviewed were always willing to help, because a lot of them can relate to what these people are going through. So I always say, seize the opportunity to get educated.
Yes. And that's so funny because that's what I have always said all my life. Having been trained as a lawyer, especially, is that, education is information, and
Yes.
you cannot make a decision without being fully informed of the facts. So yes, I think that's wonderful that there are so many people willing to help. You kind of pointed to something also that I talk about, and that is the post-divorce, I call it the post-divorce feminine archetype. And that is really the picture of the woman in a certain way, especially as it applies to divorce. And we see that in many ways. Especially, I know you and I have discussed the fact that, when you get divorced, people come up to you and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." That's just kind of the natural thing to say, right? And I always would look at someone and say, "Don't be, I'm not." So I think that it starts with that. It starts with the whole societal, familial, cultural perception of marriage, and that we should stay in the marriage, and especially as the nurturer, the caretaker, the mother, that if we are leaving the marriage, how do you do that? That's just not looked upon still as something that is, insert the word, right? I don't know. Something you're supposed to do.
I always try to tell people, none of us know what goes on behind closed doors.
Exactly.
Social media is great. You make a post, I love my spouse, they're my best friend, you're there for the family, and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And again, that's all great and terrific. But again, that's just for the moment. We have no idea what goes on during that whole other time. And there are people who have to leave marriages for a lot of reasons. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And some people leave because they are being abused by a spouse. And the numbers are staggering. Yeah. They went up, I think it was more than, 34% during COVID when everybody was on lockdown. That's a reason to leave. Safety. Yeah. Some people, there could be a third party. And some, and people leave because of that. I mean, there's a whole list of reasons, but nobody should ever make somebody feel ashamed that they left, because again, you don't know why they left. You don't know the reasons, and they're probably very valid ones, and you should just be supportive, not inquisitive, not pry, just be supportive. And so, recently somebody had come to me and said that they were getting a divorce. And I said, "Well, how are you doing?" And they said, "Thank you. You're the first person who hasn't pumped me for information or told me how sorry they are." Right. I said, "Whatever your reasons were, those are your reasons and your reasons alone, and your spouse's. And if I can assist or help in any other way, please let me know." Yeah. And that was it. It's, people should be very respectful for people during this time, and not sit here and try to just feed on a hypothesis. Like, what do you think happened? It's nobody's business.
Exactly.
It's, the world would be a better place, and it would make divorce on people who are going through it a lot easier if people just showed support.
Oh, I hear you, and I agree with you 100%. I talk a lot about support networks and how important they are when we're going through the divorce process and the healing process. And, like I mentioned earlier, some people think I have this great support network, all these people who love me and support me, but there are questions you need to ask. And I did a whole podcast on this about each person within your support network, because a lot of times we think they are the right people, but just very briefly here, the people who are in your support network need to be those who are supporting you and not telling you what you should or shouldn't do, not coming from what they think what mistakes they think you're making or what they think you should be doing. Like, for example, "Oh, okay, you're divorced. You just got divorced. Go out there and meet some men. Go to a bar. You and I both know that's not right. We need to heal first." So, and it's not just that, but like you said, just trying to get all the information, and then even spouse bashing comes into it. If you have people who support you and they're sitting there going, "Your spouse is such an asshole," and da 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 da, that's not okay either, because that just feeds the negativity and the feelings that you have within you that are negative. And in order to move on, you have to transcend the negativity. You have to transcend being stuck in a victim state so that you can heal. You can't heal if you're feeling, blaming, if you're blaming and you're feeling angry, hurt, depressed, whatever. You cannot heal. You have to learn how to get out of that state, out of that mindset. And it can be done in order to heal so that you can move forward. So there are a lot of things to look at, and who is around you during this time is really important. My hope is that, I have seen, we have seen some changes with that societal stigma against divorce, or my hope is that in time, divorce will be seen as, not this horrible, terrible thing, because as you said, we are not within the relationship. We're not within the marriage. We don't know. And sometimes people just need to go their separate ways. It's like Hugh Jackman and his wife just announced, and they're supporting each other. I know, to me, that is a wonderful thing to show the world that, yes, we had 27 years of love together. For whatever reason, doesn't matter. It's none of our business. That did not work out. They are agreeing to move forward and support each other on their own personal journeys, which I think is incredible. So.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And you put it so well. I mean, listen, ending a marriage is not easy, but you do need, and I'm so glad you brought this up, a support system. Mm-hmm. And I say to people, be very selective who that support system is. Because like you said, you don't need people feeding you negative. You need people who are going to be supportive and understanding. And sometimes you might be surprised who those people are. So when I went through my own divorce, I really didn't have any friends who were divorced. And so I think a lot of people shied away from me because they didn't know what to say. And then a friend of mine, we went to a party to support another friend, and I ran into a neighbor of mine. We started talking. She goes, "Oh my God, I need to introduce you to one of my friends who's here. She lives in the same town as us. She is just finishing up her divorce. I think the two of you are going to hit it off." Well, she introduced us. We became super close ASAP. Why? Because we got it. So if she was going through something, I fully understood where she was mentally, emotionally, financially, being a single mom. And all of a sudden, this unfortunate incident that happened to both of us, all of a sudden bonded us. And it was because every time she called, she was just like, "I am feeling this, and I know you're going to understand and get it. And you're going to help me get to where I need to get to, which is restore calm." And I said, yes, because I understand fully what you're experiencing. Whereas your other friends will always wish you well and love you, but how can they say the right things when they haven't experienced it themselves? Mm-hmm. So I try to tell people, try to, if you're looking for friends like that, and then, we met other women and we just became this group. Yeah. And I said, ask around. Do you know anyone who's been through a divorce who I can meet? Whether it's male or female, we even need our male friends too. Right. And I said, ask around. Yeah. I said, they will understand what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. They may be able to help you in a way that a friend who hasn't been through it may feel like a fish out of water, and they don't know how to guide you in the right way to resolve whatever it is that you're experiencing. And join support groups online. Ask a place where you go to worship. Some places have support groups, for divorce, widow, I'm like, ask around. I said, you may be surprised how you can start really building the right support group, and also talk to a mental health professional, whether it's a social worker or, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist. Yes. I didn't even know what divorce coaches were when I started my column. And I said, I'm going to be the only divorce journalist. And I blasted something out via email, and somebody's like, "You should interview my client who's a divorce coach." I'm like, "A what? Yeah. What's that?" And I didn't even know what that was at the time. And that could have really helped me, during my own journey. And then I started to meet so many others. I'm like, oh my God, where were you people when I was going through it? This could have been a game changer for me. Right. And so, sometimes, so I try to tell people, like, when you're looking to build, that support system, really focus on the quality versus the quantity. You don't need 5,000 people in your corner. You need like a good solid, maybe like 3 to 5 people who get it, who understand it, and will help you in the best way possible because they've been through it. So they can say, listen, don't send that email. I did that. Oh my God, it hurt me in court. Or, and then my ex sent it to the kids. It's like, I'm making things up, but I'm just saying, like, somebody may say, Ilyssa, just don't do that. I learned the hard way. Send the text to me, kind of thing. We'll work through it and then try to problem solve with the other side. Or, walk away from that. It's not going to, and maybe it will resolve itself if both of you step away from conflict. Whereas your friends will be like, go sit it. Go do that. No, we're not trying to, we're not trying to add fuel to the fire and ignite an inferno. We're trying to resolve issues so everybody can move forward and have the life that you want.
Yeah. It's such great advice. I wanted to piggyback on one thing you said about going online to look for support that way. Could be a great tool for you, especially if you don't have a lot of friends or you maybe don't have family or aren't close to your family, to go online. There are so many divorce support groups, for example, even on Facebook. But the one caveat for all of that is I tell my clients, you have to be so careful because I am a member of a lot of those groups just because, I share things with them and whatnot. And I will oftentimes something will pop up on Facebook and I will look at it and it's a spouse bashing comment. And so what I suggest to people who are going to check out these online groups is to really look through the feed. There was one in particular that I found that everybody it was so negative. And then this one woman had written a comment about moving forward and how proud she was of herself and something she had done. And it involved basically standing up for herself, standing in her truth, and speaking her truth. And I just wrote this long comment about, this is what we share. I'm so proud of you, good for you type thing. So if you are going to reach out to people who are, strangers essentially, but sharing what you're going through, there are groups that will put, no negative posting allowed. Make sure you join one of those groups because otherwise it could be counterproductive to what, you're trying to do and to your healing. But anyway,
it's so true.
Yeah. You've mentioned some great tips. And that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask you, what are some of the top 3 tips that you would give to someone? And you mentioned the financial part, getting the finances in order, maybe contacting a financial advisor, a CPA, contacting a lawyer too, obviously. And you mentioned, having these people who can support you. What else have you learned that is maybe 1 or 2 great tips over all of your interviews that you would tell somebody just starting this process?
Well, one that I'll take from personal experience, I joined an exercise group that was like a boot camp. And that was a game changer for me because the guy who would head it up, he would be like, tough week in court, huh? And I was like, and he's like, oh, I saw it on the treadmill when we were doing the treadmill part. And I would just start laughing. But you know what? I made friends there. And it was just such a healthy way to work out the stress, the anxiety, sometimes. And listen, we all go through an anger phase when you're going through a divorce. Very common because we're going to all feel a wave of different emotions. So it's very common that people feel this. And rather than take it out there with other people, I took it out right where it belonged, in the exercise class. And not only was it the healthier thing for me, mentally, but I was looking good. I was feeling really good. And it's hard to feel good when you're going through a divorce because your self-esteem and self-worth not that great.
Yeah.
But I found that, I also once spoke at an event, and I said, everybody thinks the D in divorce stands for, disaster. And I said, I kind of see it as a do-over. And I mean, when I was a kid and I was on the playground, who didn't want a do-over? If you were playing softball and you missed the ball, you're like, I get a do-over. I didn't like that.
Or jump rope and you step on the rope.
Yeah. And now you can. So what do I mean by that? it was such a great opportunity for so many people I know. They got a new haircut. They changed their hair color. They changed up the wardrobe. When the kids were visiting the other side, they started with their free time taking up hobbies. People, like you said, go back to work. I mean, it's what's so beautiful about the whole experience. And it doesn't mean I promote divorce, but divorce, as you said, has this perception it's also ugly, but there were so many beautiful stories that came out of it. Yeah. People had these great reinventions. People wrote books. People started blogs. People started groups. And I said, there are so many different things that can come out of it, but you have to have the right headspace to do it. And you have to, at some point, let go of the anger and move on to acceptance. And what am I going to do now? Yeah. And my moment was actually when I was sound asleep. I remember when I came with this whole divorce journalism stuff, but a lot of it also came through, reliving an interview I did back in 2017 with Marie Osmond, who was my childhood idol, who I at one point formed a friendship with because I had interviewed her so many times. And I had said to her, you have been through so much trauma in your life. And yet here you are celebrating milestone after milestone for all these great things you're doing at this stage in your life. How, after so much tragedy, do you still smile? And are you still setting the bar and really always reaching it every time you step out your front door? And she was like, Ilyssa, sometimes life's not meant to be fair, but it's what you do with it that makes you who you are. And I always tell my own kids, in life, you got two options. And my suggestion is take the better of the two. So you can either crawl up in a ball and let the divorce get the best of you, or you can give yourself 24 hours or so to mourn and then decide what you want to do now in this next chapter. It's a blank sheet of paper. You get to create it. And how do you want it to look? And I always tell people, I would sometimes walk with I would have my blank sheet of paper and I would always sometimes doodle something or write little words on there of things that I wanted to do. And I got a new career out of it. I met new people out of it. I mean, there were so many different things that I found out that I was doing. And what I found as I was peeling almost like an onion, I was peeling away what was, and I was finding what was going to be. Right. I became happier. I became really content. I just became this person that got lost along the way. And all of a sudden I felt like I was sprouting up into something new. And I started really liking myself, which was something that I wasn't doing for a while.
That's the journey. That's the journey. Yeah. It's all about, like you said, and I coach people through all of these things, the letting go, the speaking your truth, the putting you first is huge. Like you said, getting the new hairdo, the exercise, you have to have a healthy body. It's the mind, body, and spirit all working together. Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy spirit. You cannot heal without that trifecta. And so I love that picture. And I always tell people, you're not just working on the one thing, you're working on all those things. And they say to me, well, that's so overwhelming. And I say, but it's not, no, it's not, because the most important thing is to focus on, even if you're a mom, you put you first. You have to be the first one in your lives, especially as a mom, because when we are mothers, I mean, my kids are adults now, but when I was mothering them, they were, always first. It was always, what's their schedule? What are they doing? Oh, someone's sick. I can't do this. Oh, I can't shower today. Oh, I can't, whatever. So it's very hard, especially for women, because we are the nurturers and the caretakers, to put ourselves first. But that is one of the biggest lessons that I learned through my divorce journey. And you are 100% right, because when you start doing all of these things together and working on that trifecta of body, mind, and spirit, that is when you start to feel the difference. And the exercise brings the endorphins, the putting you first. You feel prettier, you look better, and you should. It's not a time, like you said, to curl up in a ball and sit and eat bonbons on the couch and watch Netflix. It's a time to create the new you. And even though that's scary, and even though you may not know where to start, there are people out there like you and I who can help people do this. So there is no excuse. It's the first step is making a commitment to your healing. If you say,
and I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. And it's about, you said something earlier on, and I was trying to hold back my laughter because I said, oh my God, if my mother was in the room, she would laugh. And it's about asking for help. Mm-hmm. And I was so bad at doing that for the longest time. And my mom would yell at me. She's like, You got to ask for help. You can't do it all. Blah, blah. And she would always yell at me. When I was going through my divorce and as a single parent, I've learned how to do that. And that was a very big thing for me. And when you were saying that, I was like, oh my God, if my mother heard you say that, she would be like, I told you, I told you, I told you.
Yeah.
And I learned that it was okay. So,
okay.
You know, when you're building your team, it's like, it's okay to ask another mom, listen, I'm going to be running late from work and I can't pick Susie up from school this, tomorrow. Is there any chance you could drive her home? Next week, I have a little bit more flexibility. And if you want, I'm happy, to drive Susie and Betty home, if it helps you, kind of thing. It's okay to ask for help. I remember when, the finances, I had no control over, my finances. And then when I had to learn everything, I made a phone call to somebody I know who had been handling them. I said, listen, I'm a fish out of water here. And they said, here's what I'm going to do. I have an hour tomorrow where I was just going to catch up, but instead I'm devoting that hour to you. Are you free this time? We're going to jump on a Zoom and I'm telling you, we're going to get this done. And I said, I am now clearing my schedule. We jumped on a Zoom and they just sat down and held my hand and walked me through everything. And I was just like, all I had to do was ask. And this happened with so many other things. I needed help with a few other things. And you want to know something? When I asked, not only did people feel good that they were doing something to help somebody else, but I knew that at some point it was somebody going to be in my shoes that was going to call me and help. Right. And so, when you ask for help, it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. Yeah. And I think that is one thing that people need to remember, that just because we're asking for help doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It means that we're all one person. And you want to know something? We are better when we all join in and help together. Yes. Everybody needs that team and support behind them. Hillary Clinton said years ago, and people laugh, but they say it all the time, it takes a village. Yep. And, and it's okay to always, I ask favors all the time. People ask me all the time. Yeah. And it's okay. Yeah. And I just say, teamwork. That's how I always respond. I always write teamwork in one 100%. Word. And that is okay. And I think it also helps us let go a little. Women, we are used to being in control because, again, as I said earlier, we're used to, we got to juggle everything in the house. Doesn't matter if we're at work, and we got to juggle everything at work. And you got to keep a tight rein on everything so nothing falls through the crack, because that creates a domino effect. So yes, women, for the most part, we do have to stay and we have to be in control. And I'm like, and it's okay to let go a little and let other people help you out, because one, it alleviates your pressure, your stress. You can think a lot clearer when a lot of people are going to come to you with a lot of questions that may need, quick turnaround decisions. And I always say to people that, it's a good thing. And you know what? You're going to feel loved, that you have people who want to help you and who are willing to help you. Mm-hmm. And again, people don't feel like they're loved during a divorce because obviously you're dissolving a marriage and maybe the other side doesn't want to talk to you or anything. And you're not feeling very, very good about yourself. But you can when you build a village, because you'll see people are willing to help. You just have to do the whole ask out, and there's nothing wrong with it. And so I always try to tell people, don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. Do it. Mm-hmm. It'll make you feel good.
Amen. Amen. I agree 100%. I cannot believe how fast time has flown here, because this is just also wonderful. I feel like we could sit here and talk for another hour. Maybe we'll have to do this again. But I think I love that we talked about so many different ways to get help and to help yourself and to how to get started. And so what I'd love to do is refer all of my viewers and listeners to your radio show and podcast. So if you could share with us where that is, and for the viewers, we'll put that up on the screen, and that way people can find you and be part of, your incredible world and all of your information that you provide.
No, thank you. Yeah. So the Divorce Hour is on CRN Digital Talk Radio Network. We're on every weekend, Saturdays at 1:00 Eastern, 10:00 Pacific. We repeat Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. And then after that, you can find us on every major podcast platform. Some of the ones are Spotify, iTunes, Google Home, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, Amazon Audible. You can ask Alexa. Trying to think, but those are the big ones. So any episode that you missed, such as our upcoming weekend episode or episodes we've been on the air now over 2 years, from day one until most recent, you can catch them there. And you will see we do a deep dive into anything and everything that can happen before, during, or after your divorce.
Fantastic. And where can people find you on Instagram?
Instagram and Twitter are just my name, Ilyssa Panitz, no spaces. And we post every article that I do for the magazines and the columns, as well as every episode. And if you go into the story section, we'll link you right to where you can find them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun having you and talking about all this. And like I said, I feel like we could sit here for hours and keep going, but I really appreciate you being here today. And thank you. Thanks for showing up, everybody, and get in touch with Ilyssa to learn a lot more to help you in your journey.